All right, let's talk about the 2.4.1 lab, counting by mass. So in the intro, it says it's easy to count small amounts of large atoms, like how many bananas do you have? But when it comes to how many grains of rice or how many particles of sugar do you have, it's more like atoms, where they're so small that it's difficult to count them. So we need a different strategy. So one thing that you'll need to do if you're watching this because I have a sub, you can still guess the amount of Skittles in the container. Otherwise, if you missed out on the guess, I'm very sorry, but we're having a guessing contest. And then everybody gets a bag of rice for this activity. And your first thing that you're supposed to do is try to come up with a way that you can figure out how many grains of rice are in your bag without opening it. You are allowed to have a separate sample of rice that maybe, 50 pieces, and you're allowed to know that the Ziploc bag itself weighs about 2.5 grams. So think about it and take a guess how many grains of rice are actually in the bag. Then what you're going to do is you're going to count out 50 grains of rice and weigh that many. And they weigh about 0.78 grams altogether. So for the mass ratio, you need to take the mass divided by how many there are to figure out exactly how many grams one grain weighs. And so it comes out to be 0.0156. And the reason why you can't just put 1 grain of rice on the scale is because 1 grain of rice isn't going to be able to be accurately measured with our scales. So then weigh the entire bag of rice and subtract the 2.5 grams. And let's just say your bag of rice weighed 180.55 grams. Well, how do you figure out now how many grains of rice are in that bag? Well, you know the total bag weighs 180.55 grams, and you know that each single grain of rice weighs 0.0156 grams per grain. And the way that these units work is grams cancel out, so you've got 1 over grains, which means grains flips to the top, and this comes out to be over 11,000 grains of rice. Next thing it asks you to do is count how long use a cell phone stopwatch, time how long it takes somebody in your group to count out 50 grains of rice. So let's say it takes somebody 45 seconds. Well, what's the time ratio, the grain per second? When you see the per, that's a divided sign. So 50 grains divided by 45 seconds, that comes out to be 1.11 grains per second. So you're essentially counting out a little more than 1 per second. So if your bag of rice contained 11,574 grains, like it did above, now you've got to divide by your time ratio, 1.11 grains per second, and you get 10,470 seconds divided by 60 seconds in a minute. That comes out to be 174 minutes. You could divide by 60 again to figure out how many hours that is. So divide by 60 minutes per hour. So just to count out that bag at the beginning, it would take almost 3 hours. So we were able to figure out all of that without actually counting all the grains of rice and taking 3 hours of time. You'd be here half the day. So in that same idea, an entire bag of goldfish weighs 187 grams. An entire bag of kernels of popcorn weighs 907 grams. And an entire bag of peas weighs 453. They're like split green peas. Again, these are just, food examples because they're big enough for us to actually count and do the math. But the analogy is that these are different kinds of atoms. So you're going to run through these. For example, let's say you've got 10 goldfish and they weigh 5.57 grams. Well, what's the mass ratio? That's about 0.56 grams per fish. So again, to do that, I took the 5.57 and I divided by the 10. Okay. And then how many fish are in the entire bag? Well, you do 187 grams divided by the mass ratio. And you figure out that an entire bag of goldfish has around 334 fish. Okay, and then let's say you count out 15 kernels of popcorn and they weigh 1.74 grams. The mass ratio, 1.74 divided by 15, comes out to be 0.12 grams per kernel. And if an entire bag weighs 907 grams, divide that by the 0.12 grams per kernel, and that comes out to be about 7,558 kernels of popcorn. It's a lot of pieces of popcorn. And then let's say for your peas, you counted out 26 and they weighed 2.46 grams. That comes out to be a mass ratio of 0.095 grams per pea. Take the mass of the total bag of peas and divide by the 0.095 grams per pea. And that comes out to be 4,768 peas. So you can see it's the same process every time. And so we're going to be doing the same thing after we learn a little bit about dimensional analysis with moles. And then it will make more sense why we were doing this.